Hello and welcome to Azure's Live Mert to the Future. And long time no see. We have a long break, but today I have a very special guest, Nicholas Chang, if I pronounce your name correctly. And welcome, Nicholas. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Mert?
I am fine, thank you. So today we are going to talk about infrastructure as code. I think you are going to mention a little bit Bicep and Terraform. Am I correct?
Yeah, and I'll give you some overview of different tools as well, and
Okay.
like the the basic of infrastructure as code and how is it used and how it's
Okay,
come
great.
together.
Great. So before we start, can you please introduce yourself, your community activities, and
Yeah,
some
yeah.
stuff?
So I am Nicholas Chang. I'm currently working for I think Canos in Birmingham, and currently So I'm doing a session on getting started with infrastructure as code for people that's new to it and want to know more about it and get to uh, get more hands on with it. So I'm glad to be on this to help you.
Okay, great. So let's start.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm doing a session on getting started with infrastructure as code. So this is an overview of who am I. So I'm currently a platform engineer at a company called Canos. I love technology and I'm a blogger and I'm starting to contribute more to community. So you can also find me on my Twitter and LinkedIn. My Twitter handle is Nick underscore CloudOps. And I got a blog as well. Sometimes I write some stuff on under nicholaschangblog.com. I'm also certified with some of the following Azure certification, for example, Azure DevOps, Azure Administrator, Azure Security Engineer, Azure Fundamentals. Yeah. So in this session, I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to talk about. So infrastructure as code. So I'm first going to give you a history of how is it formed together and tell you about infrastructure code, the benefit of infrastructure code, how infrastructure code works, and the type of infrastructure code and how is it used in the current cloud, and a little demo and the future of infrastructure code. Where is it going? So that bef- currently before infrastructure code, there were people in like sysadmin IT that's normally doing manual setup or more maintenance, and that normally have to set up multiple servers, multiple environment at once, and it's very like time consuming, more constrained to the the resources for human. So it come up as different errors. For example, it will be like high human resources, and more possible of a human make a mistake or someone else. You can normally when you there's also we manually had to like update server, patching servers, maintaining servers, and just take frustrated. So that's comes infrastructure as code. That's how it's formed. So infrastructure code is the process of defining our development via code. So according to Microsoft, it's a methodology and versioning that let you describe how you want your network, virtual machines, or load balancer in the cloud. So this is an overview of benefits of infrastructure code. So I'm going to tell you about how. So infrastructure code is a key best practice of continuous delivery components. So that's part of how you deliver your software to the end user, and you can it's normally you can use to avoid manual configuration because everything will be consistent, your code will be all the same, so it's hard to make errors, and you can normally deliver a stable testing environment. So whenever you have multiple environments, you're unsure something's stable or not with inconsistent. So you normally would just do that. So it would just deliver at scale. So you can also share code with other team members or people. So if you have multiple team in your company, you can share your code and reuse it as well. So that's one of the benefits of using the infrastructure as code. So I'm going to talk about this is how infrastructure as code works. So it can also be declarative or imperative. So declarative is how you define the process and how you want the code in. And imperative means that you have to how you configure something. So there's also immutable or immutable like infrastructure code as well. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So immutable, so something that's not always change. And mutable is something that's changing constantly. So it's agent and agentless. And you can also configure it via CI/CD, like Azure DevOps, Jenkins, and GitHub Actions. So in this diagram, I show you how it integrates with continuous integration, continuous delivery. So normally how it works is that you have the plan, and that's how when someone like an engineer or a platform engineer write the code, and then you store it in version control. For example, when you're using Gate, you store in Gate, and then you build it. Once you build it, you test it as well. So that testing could be any automated testing. So for example, unit tests, static code analysis tests, and then that's when it reaches continuous delivery side. So continuous delivery will be part of the release, deploy, operate, monitor. So the release and deploy is how you use the tool, for example, Azure DevOps or Jenkins, the CI/CD tool, in order to deliver the software to the end user. So I'm going to talk you. So some of these tools includes resource manager template. So Azure Resource Manager template, which is for Azure, the native tool, and there's Bicep. And then there's also Terraform, Azure CLI, and Azure PowerShell, which you can use as well. So, and then there's all the tools from different cloud. For example, there's Azure AWS CloudFormation and Pulumi. So we're going to go into more detail with some of the popular one. So Azure Resource Manager is a built-in and expose an API as endpoint in order to connect to Azure, and it allows you to normally, when you configure like a resource manager template, that's what it's called, you normally can just deploy resources to Azure itself, resource group. So how it works is that you see this diagram here. The resource manager template connect to the REST clients as well as direct connect to the Azure portal, and then you can connect via CDK to Azure PowerShell CLI. So that's a method that you can use the resource manager template. And then this is an example how on the right hand side is an example how you can actually write as a resource manager template. So you can see it's in the form of JSON. So it's all in a form of JSON file. This is an example of a storage account. And then you can see it's writing the location, the API version, the SKU name, and the storage account name, and storage account type, and which is kind and properties, which you can see there. The next one, so there's more detail about with ARM templates with Azure Resource Manager. So As I said, it expose the API at the endpoint, so you connect directly to Azure itself. So you don't need to go to another provider. So and it's very like you can use deployments. You can use deployment like when you add, you can deploy it via PowerShell script templates. PowerShell scripts, you can add those as template your files and then deploy it like in batches as well. And then you can also track deployment view the Azure portal. So you can go when you view the Azure portal, you can see how far your deployment stages, your history, you get more information about it. So the next infrastructure code tool that I'm going to talk about is Bicep. So Bicep is a declarative language, which is when I mentioned before earlier, you declare what you want has the end state. So what you want, you say you wanted like resource managed storage account, you just declare that you wanted it, and then it would just create it there for you. So yes, define infrastructures you want, how to deploy it, and some of the benefits of Bicep was that it's it support all of like it have a direct connection to Azure service. So if any like Azure resources is on GA preview, you can use it, which is built. You can see on this diagram, it's built on top of the Azure Resource Manager template and Resource Manager ARM template, the Bicep. So it's you can say, look at it like a next level aside from with Azure ARM template.
So we can say it is another type of ARM template, but it is not in JSON form.
No, it's not in JSON form,
Okay.
but it helps. For example, so JSON form is like it give you like you can have lots of JSON like for 200 lines, but it helps compress all those JSON file, and then in order to use it, so it's more easier into deploy resources because you have direct connected from it.
Okay.
So it's much cleaner to easier read than JSON, but like that's well. So you can really use Bicep template using parameters. So whenever you want to reuse another template or like Bicep file for like your deployment at work anywhere else, you can create parameters, and then you can add those. You can add those values until you want it. So you can add the parameters and then add values. For example, if you want an environment, you can you add those environments as values. So Bicep can be done with parameter can need to be string, init, boolean, or object. So yeah. So next one I'm going to talk about is Terraform. So Terraform is a declarative tool that's written in HCL language. It's an open source. It's from a company called HashiCorp. So and it supports multi-cloud. And on-premises. Sorry. So it also it's HCL. It's playing on HCL language, and it just let you just normally like whatever you write, you declare what you want. For example, that's why they have some of the structure of it could be like you write, plan, create, and deploy. So on the bottom side, I put a screenshot of all the companies or partners with HashiCorp that currently use a Terraform. So like Microsoft and AWS, so it's quite global company as well. So for Terraform, there's a thing called modules where you can reuse it in a different code and different configuration. So it's let you, a module is like a grouping a set of Terraform code together and deploy in one like folder directory, and you deploy it all at once. So it's the main of the module is called the root module, and every sub module is called a child module. You just call those. You can also reuse components in your module. So for example, if you create a module with storage account, you could reuse that for separate projects and stuff. And how you want it depends on your need requirements of your project. And there's also, you can create modules privately, and you can have, there's also some created by the community, and you can find it from the Terraform registry with that link I give you. Yeah, the registry.terraform.io. This is the community created one, and there's some official one created by Hachiko. So I'm gonna give you show you some demo. So it's a demo of like how you can. There's two demo I want to show you. This first demo is first how you get started. Show you a bit of Terraform, and then lastly I will show you about Bicep. Okay, so let me log in. So apologies.
So before we start, I want to ask, which tools do I need to install if I start to use Bicep or Terraform, or any extensions?
So yeah, so if you want to use, for example, we go first is Terraform. If you want to use Terraform, you can search for Terraform here, and I would suggest you install the one from Hachiko, or there's one from this Terraform as well. So there's few, but I would recommend the Hachiko one because that's where it's from.
Okay.
And there's various extensions. For example, if you want to use it with Azure, you install Azure Terraform as well. Yeah. So let's show you a demo of how we can use Terraform. Okay. So
okay. And Nicholas, I'll make the full screen so people can see better. Okay.
Okay. Better.
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. So we're gonna start from scratch. Okay. So once you create it, I've created something called. Okay, so to start from scratch, you create a file you wanted. So I create one previously for this demo. So you can see if you just type resource, so you always have to create this. So this is a resource name, and this name could be the name of the provider you want is Azure. So if you type Azure down, you see a list of like Azure resources. And if you want to, for example, create a storage account, you just type storage account here. And the next one, this is the resource name. And then the next one is the name, the value that you gave the name. So this needs to be unique per your configuration. So these resources, one resources cannot have multiple values of the same name. So it's meant to be unique. So you can give it anyone, like for example, demo. And every resource any resource group must have a name. So you can create a name. And then you can need to hard code it like demo test. And then every resource has a location as well. So the location, for example, I would do is UK's West. So yeah, so if you were to, for example, instead of hard coding these values, we can actually make this as variable. So to make as a variable, what I would suggest is we create another file, for example, variable.tf, and you put in it will be under variables. So you just type variable like here, and this location, and you just type. So the type that you want is a string because it's normally text. So text is normally a string. And you just give it a brief description on the double quote. And then you put it under variable.tf, and you can reference that. In order to reference that in the name here, you call var dot. So we call it. It will be var dot location because that's a location of variable. You can do the same thing with the name as well. So that's how the variable is defined. Okay. So I've created one already, a resource group here already. So you can see I've created for this demo, I've created several resources. For example, this resource is a VM, a virtual machine. So I create a virtual network, so which is going to be a name. So what I did is that for this name, I put in text here, and I call the resource like variable name as well, the virtual network name. So what this call is, it's called interpolation. So in Terraform, it's called interpolation. That's where you put dollar and then squarely bracket, and you put your variable name. So for example, var.resource group, or you just call the resource group the variable that you just defined that you want it. So, and then the next one will be the address. So every virtual network would have an address. So this. Yeah. So, and this virtual network. So if you were like get confused how the structure of a Terraform would look like, I would suggest you go to so HashiCorp registry. So in the HashiCorp website, this is where Terraform is from. HashiCorp, the company what I'm suggesting. You go to Azure, and then you need to need to go to documentation and find your resource you want. For example, like all these would tell you any resource that you want. For example, a service plan. You can actually copy that, use it what you want, and change around the values to the variable names. So for example resources, location, rest Europe. So you can put variable there, or you can interpolate that. I mentioned state before. These are hard coded as well, so that's fine. That's an example. So before we start to do this, we must define define some providers in order to interact with Terraform itself. So I created a file called provider.tf, and we copied this provider would be normally this provider. So when you go to HashiCorp website, you click on provider in the right-hand side blue, and it would be here. You can copy this. You can copy exactly the whole thing of that, and then paste it there. Like paste it there. It will be the same. So the next, this is how the backend of Terraform, you can store your backend locally. So if you don't have like Terraform have several ways that you can store backend. You can store it locally. You can store it in Azure storage, or you can store it in AWS storage or S3 bucket, or you can use Terraform Cloud. So that's like enterprise cloud. That's the own version of storing interaction with cloud. Good. So for this demo, I've decided to store my state file, because all Terraform configuration to deploy all these resources are stored in a state file. and the state file is stored in Azure. So for mine, I defined the backend of here, Azure and backend. So for the backend, it needs to have a resource group, storage account. My resource group is all GTF states and storage account. Container name, so that's the container that you create storage name. And this is the key. So the key, you could just put anything that will just create a blob, like so it will create like a container within the container that you created. I can show you what this likes on Azure portal if you want. So let me log in. So sorry about that. Let me just authenticate. Apology. Sorry about that. I got a two-factor.
No worries.
Okay, so once you authenticate to Azure portal, you can go to it. The TF state will be on your. As you can see, I created my TF state RG. You click on your storage account, and the container will be the container name that you heard. So mine's TF states, and the container defined is TF state here. When you click on your container, this is how you. This is a TF state file. So it's pretty much all your configuration where it's stored, your backend. So you need to keep this very securely, because anything wrong with this, it'll corrupt your configuration. So we can look at an example of our TF state. So let's have a look. So when I open one, download it. So okay, we open one. Apologies. Okay, so the TF state. Let me just. Okay, so it's fine. Sorry. So we'll look at this. It's in JSON. So can you see it? So it's in JSON. So normally this is JSON, and you can see these contain all the resources. So for example, this is resource group. You can see the type is a RGRM resource group. The name is resource group, and the provider is used as well. And you can see some schema as well here. So this is just an example, because I've got a lot of TF state here. So the basic concept of Terraform is you write, plan, and apply. So I'm going to show you how we can create this virtual machine that I've created here earlier. So normally you will go to the directory where you created when you write your configuration. For example, I write this under Terraform example directory, which is correct. And you do Terraform init, which configure your working directory. Okay, sorry, just fixing something. Okay, so before we get started with the command, if you don't know any of this command, there's something called help. So you can type terraform --help, and the main command that you normally would need is init, that set up your working directory here. Validate, you check your configuration whether it have any issues or errors. A plan is show your preview of your resources. Apply is when you deploy the stages to Azure AWS, and destroy your resources that you created. So we're gonna deploy the virtual machine that I created. So I'll show you. So it just asking me to deploy, like I need to upgrade the provider because it wasn't set currently. So let me quick upgrade that. So you can see what it's doing now. It's trying to initialize the backend, and then it's pulling the Azure RM provider here, and then you can see it's upgrading, it's installing 3.48, and then it's installing here. So after you successfully run Terraform init, you can see it's been successfully because it's green. You'll get green here, color coded. And then it will run a Terraform plan. So let me try if any made any mistakes. So a Terraform plan is like the command that I show you to do. It's like give you a preview of the resource that you want to deploy, and you can you can check the preview. It's asking for a password, so I'm going to give it password 1. Sorry, this is the feature. Okay, fix that. Okay, go back in it because it was asking for a feature. So if you do not know where you want to find that, the best way it would just go back to the portal, and then there would be documentation on how you can do the provider. So if you go to how you want to authenticate, so you can do by managed service as well. So this is good documentation, how to good documentation, and then it will tell you how you can interact with it. So there's neither managed service, CLI. Majority of people would use CLI. So yeah, so this is an example how you want. So this is the feature that I'm missing, you can tell. So if you got no idea how you can get started with the Terraform, write the code, I would suggest go to registry.terraform.io and click on Azure and go on documentation. And then you have these will give you various options on how you want to authenticate to Azure. So with the CLI manage identity and some service principle. So let's go back to Virtual Studio. So let's run a plan now. So when running a plan, you should give you a preview stage. So let me just put the password again. Step in. So sometimes it takes a while. Depends on how many infrastructure you wrote. So since I wrote a virtual machines here, or this working directory with Terraform here, all these codes are the resource that I create for virtual machines, and you can see it's outputting the IP address for you. And this Terraform TF files is a file that you can use to reference the variables. For example, if you go to variables, you define a variable's locations, like variable.location, and then you reference the location. So you put location UK West, so you hard coded values in TF files. And then it normally is set in the same working directory. Otherwise, you have to define where it's set. So you can see when we ran a Terraform plan, you gave you an overview of the virtual machine that I want to deploy to Azure. So you can see it's deploying quite a few resources now. So you can tell, so the plus side means a crate, and anything with finishes, it's updating place. So whether it's due to updating the resources. So you can see one resource will get changed, and Yeah, see, one resource will get changed and then 9 to add. So after you run, it gives you a preview of your Terraform like infrastructure, and you can have a look at it before you run apply. So never, when you run in apply, the next thing we want to do is run Terraform apply. So it's just it will be just Terraform apply. After running Terraform apply, I would have to put in a password because I set it up so it authenticate me to put a password, but I could have just put a hard coded password into your vaults. So after running Terraform apply, it should give you an option to like approve yes. So say yes if you want to. So say yes in order to approve the deploy the resources. So I will say yes because I want to deploy to Azure. So it is pretty much the yes is just confirmation that you want to deploy the resources. And give it a few minutes, it will just try to create the resources. You can tell exactly just you see the same of the resources that you want to create, like resource group, virtual network. So it's taking a while to create it because it's virtual machine. It creates all different resources that the virtual machine will needs. So it would like, for example, the main, it will create the public IP, it will create the interface as well that you interact with the virtual machine, and it will create the virtual machine itself, which have several resources as well. And I define the key in a key vault. I will show you what it will look like. Sorry, once it deployed.
So can we say when you run Terraform apply, first it run Terraform plan,
Yeah,
shows
so
plan?
you run a plan, you get to
Yeah.
you get like a preview of the infrastructure, and then never ever do Terraform a plan dash apply because dash apply because you won't get the confirmation always because it's bad practice. Always run a plan and then do a Terraform apply and then do the confirmation because
Okay.
you want to get confirm. You want to confirm what you deploy, so you get see what it is. Yeah, so it's just taking a while because it's the resource is the virtual machines. Okay, so we can log into Azure and you can see the virtual machines about to be created. So go to the resource group or G server. That's the resource group that's been created. You can see it on the Azure portal when you go to it. Let me just here. Slowly you can see all the resources that you define in Terraform. For example, all these will be slowly populated once it's done. So it's still in the middle of creating the key vault, which I use it to store some of the, you can use key vault to store the password, which I use as well. Okay, so this is just it's in okay, so Terraform name. So this is quite interesting error message. It's saying the virtual network Terraform lab, the resource group name can't be created, can't be used. So in order to fix this is that you can go back. It tells you precisely what error is. So you can either go to the virtual network, the resources. So say line 10 of the resource Azure RM virtual network. So on your file that you got like virtual networking, you go to line 10, or you can click line 10 here. So I think I made a mistake. Sorry. So on this error message, it's saying failed status code 400, invalid resource group name, resource group Terraform Lab. So resource group Azure Virtual Network, just Azure virtual, so the virtual network name, and then we can check what's called, so virtual network name here, and then we don't need that, so have it twice. So virtual network name, virtual network name. Not sure what's that there. Okay, so user suit Terraform LAD. The name can be 8 much bigger with character. Okay, there we go. It might just be see, I think it's a dash. It doesn't really like the character, so let's just put like give it a test vnet example, something like that. And sometimes Azure is really it doesn't allow certain name convention. So let's give it a go again. So just run. So I'll run the plan again. And then just make sure we have the updated one. So the VNet example name. So I'll put the password in. Yeah, I decided that I want to type in the password instead of hard code it there. It's just for like confidentiality. So you just create a type the password that we want. So it give you a plan. So when you go back to virtual network name, you can see it's here. VNet example, VNet demo. That's brilliant. Resource group name, the resource. That's fine. It's on Terraform demo. It's on resource group Terraform lab. Okay. So let's just try to run Terraform apply now, because we make sure that those changes we did met already. So this is the valid changes that we just changed. Remove the dash sign from it, and then run Terraform apply again. So I just need to type the password again. Sorry. Okay, so this just give you a confirmation if you want to deploy it for approval again. Say yes.
So, Nicholas, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any deployment scope in Terraform like we do in Bicep? For example, deployment scope is resource group or subscription?
Yeah, so deployment scope. No, not real. No, there's no scope. We just have to deploy through you, because there's not really a scope of it. It's just how you like for the provider. There's numerous way you can set it up. You can hard code your subscription here. So when you go here, you can hard code your subscription here. It could be under client certificate, one of those. Can't remember what's there. You can hard code the subscription, but then majority of the time you can deploy resource on its own without we don't need a resource group to be on the resource group. You just It just depends way how you authenticate to Azure. You can choose numerous method, but the best way that you want it, numerous people you would use is it would be the Azure CLI. So to do that, we would just log into go to terminal, type AZ login, and then once you type AZ login, authenticate. So this will just give you direct access to Azure itself. And in order to find out that is that you can see it's login to my Azure subscription and my username.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go back to the error message I'll get. So this one says already created. So line 52. Okay, so main.52. So we go back to the line. So this is the number of the lines in your code and its resources. So it says an issue with line 52 here. And it's saying it's already existed because it's already most likely deployed already. Only create option is attached. So I think it's already deployed. So we can try to see where it deployed. So we can go just destroy it and then we can recreate it again. It's because I think it's saying we already have it deployed and it wouldn't let you. So instead of like going to the Azure portal to deploy it, I would just to destroy to resource it, I would just type Terraform destroy because it's much better than manually destroy the resources. So this by typing Terraform destroy, it will destroy the resources and then we will create it again. See, you can see on this is a good example. You can see when we output the public IP address. So this is the public IP address it's referencing, and it display the public IP address for you here on the screen. So it's how you want to output the values, and then you just reference the resource that you want to display on the screen. So yeah, Terraform destroy just tear down your infrastructure that we just create, and then we'll just run and apply again to make sure it's been successful. So you can see on the Terraform destroy that it's destroying all these resources because it's on the red. It's red, solid red, and it's got the minus sign as well. So it's all these resources that's been destroyed. So sometimes when you have MFA in Azure or AWS, it would when you do like in Azure instance, when you type AZ login, you have this option saying you need to enable like you need to put dash use device code because in order to bypass the MFA because you have it in your tenant. So I didn't do that, so I have to do that. But you can see it will still work. You will still get authenticated. So this is the showing the resources. So let me just check the error message again. So only create option attached is supported. So message disk. Okay, so it might be the disk. Let me just go back to main.tab. So this is quite good because it's quite learning curve. So you get error, you just find out how to look at it. Majority of it information is telling you it. So what's the issue is probably a disk. My disk one is already exist there in group resource group here. Only create option attach is supported. So when we go down, we go to the disk side. Attach is supported. So create option, attach is supported. So it's from image. So you can see the create options here, create option, and it's supported. So since I'm not sure about how to do this, I go to Azure RM virtual machines and go back to this and go into Azure RM virtual machines. This will tell you how it's meant to be laid out here. So the disk. So you can have the disk. So on create option from image and disk. So it should be here. Let's look at the arrow. So the arrow is it is this create option attach is supported. That should work. Okay, so let it destroy, then we will create it again. So because it's saying create option from image name. See the storage account. So storage, the OS disk is the disk that hold the data for the virtual machines. It has the name, caching, create option, manage disk. So we'll go back, we'll select destroy. Slowly destroying. Anyone else? Is there any questions for anyone have regarding Terraform?
No, not right now. But interesting part is we didn't see anything on the Terraform plan, right? Any errors?
No, that's the interesting thing. You don't see it. Sometimes you can have a successful plan, but when you do apply, you can have an error as well. So that's quite strange. It's very common as well. So you can have a successful plan and get error after. Because you can see this is like the issue is regarding disk. So my disk one, because I think it's already attached, it won't let me do it. So I had to recreate it. I can remove it by the Azure portal manually, but it's better just destroy the resource by Terraform and then get it recreated so that everything, all the resources back in the state file in Azure. So when you go to the portal, you can see some of these resources about to be destroyed. In a minute. Yeah, it's still destroying. Because you can tell all these are Terraform use curly braces to indent it. So when you start a resource, create a resource like version Azure network interface, you open the curly braces and you always close at the end. You always close it with another curly braces. So this inside the network interface, it has an IP address that you define, like for the subnet, and then IP address as well. So and then you close that as well. It's like another block within a block. So this is counted as a separate block, and this is the main block, which is the resource block. So you can close that with the, just close it here. Sorry, just taking a while to join.
No worries.
So once it destroys, you can see majority of the resource removed on Azure portal. So when when I mentioned that you can track that successful deployment, so you can track it via when you deploy it here on deployment on Azure portal, the resource group where you want, and you click deployment on the settings, and these are some of the, you can use this to track the Azure uh, resource manager template, the ARM template that I discussed earlier. So you can use this to track the progress of it, and otherwise you can view the templates, redeploy it as well. So yeah, so this is an example of the states file. So whenever you store the state file in Azure or cloud, you can also have a local state as well. So this state file what I mentioned for these or JSON, which is quite confidential. So you don't want to get this corrupted. You want to keep it safe. So this should not be, like, for example, stored here. So you normally have one stored in locally as well as one backed up in Azure or your remote state as well. So we're going back, is this join. So we go back to Azure portal. This refresh, let's just refresh the portal. So it's still 10, so it's still disjoin. It's taking a while to destroy. This might not be a good example, but it's still learning for everyone that ran into issue. So it's still good. Hopefully we should have enough time so I can explain some bicep with you after, because Terraform and bicep is two of the most popular infrastructure as code nowadays that people would use to provision their Azure resource. But Terraform is multi-cloud, but bicep is only for Azure. It's in an environment where you only use Azure. And I would say the reason why you want to learn Terraform could be because you want to use it with AWS, Google on-prem as well, and Azure, or you want to use if you want to use Bicep, you can still use Bicep, and then but it only will be in Azure, but you can get the latest features of like Azure services resource and when it's on GA and stuff, but it's still quite good. So you can see there's an issue with it. So it tells us that the Terraform resource group still contain resources, and we need to put in this prevent if resource contain is false in our provider here. So this is one of the issues that gets sometimes this occur whenever there's a resource it's still stuck. For example, if you got an app inside or it didn't get deleted before currently. Let me just refresh this.
Is that error message for the resources that
Oh,
didn't
the
created by
resource.
the Terraform?
Okay, the resource is destroyed. Okay, so
Yeah.
can you? So no. So this error message, it's when we attempt to delete some stuff. used Terraform destroy previously, and then there's resources that still left in the resource scope. We couldn't finish destroying the resources. So let's look what it's called. So I will call it Terraform Lab. So that's what it's called. And it couldn't destroy my disk one. See, you remember when I said it couldn't
Yeah.
create it? So we can either you could manually delete it here, destroy the resources here. It was still the same. Or you can use this flag in order to unintentionally destroy it. So this is false. So when you check it to false, hopefully that will destroy it. So you can see what it's about. So this feature is intended to avoid unintentional destruction. If it's set to false, it could destroy it as well. We could try, so let's try. So you can see it's under the provider Azure RAM features. So we go to provider.tf and we go to features here. And on the features, you just copy exactly what it is under features here. So copy exactly what it is. Got a mistake. So Azure, so copy that exactly. Oh, sorry. You can see, apologies. Is the indentation. We know when I try copy it, copy the line as well. So yeah, it should not copy and paste. Don't ever copy and paste. There. We can try if that will work. So it false. So hopefully this by setting false, that would hopefully destroy the resources in the resource group. I've not tried it before, so still a learning curve for me. So Terraform apply. Because we only do apply because we already know there's only one resource is there. But otherwise always run Terraform plan. Let's just save it again.
Do we need to run the Terraform init before running Terraform apply?
No. You only run in Terraform init is only to set up the working directory. It would normally pull the providers here. So by running Terraform init, it pull the providers and it can pull the different modules as well. So yeah, so it's like the provider used is before it was Terra version 3.14 and it's got upgraded to 3.480.
Okay, so it is not related to the provider file.
No.
Just for the references. Okay.
Yeah, so Terraform init is just initialize the working directory, pull all the provider, all the modules, anything that you want that you declare to get it ready before you run the plan and apply. But you can always run apply without running a plan, but it's best practice to run plan first. But in this instance, since we already know it's only one resources in there on the Terraform lab, we just ran Terraform apply. Otherwise, you would just run plan. So it will still create it now. So it's still creating. So you can tell it's creating under this ID. So for example, the resource subscription, your subscription ID. So this is my subscription resource group, Terraform Lab, providers, Microsoft network, network interface, Terraform, VM NIC. So you can tell it's under that is creating. So this is trying to. Oh yeah, sorry. This is meant to destroy. Apologies. One command. I tried to reapply something that I meant to destroy first. Otherwise, I would just remove this from the portal, but it's quicker just remove it. But I think you will get a understanding the concept of using Terraform. It's quite simple if you pick it up. So majority of if you don't know anything, I would just recommend just go to this documentation. It's really helpful a lot. So you can use it to like find any resources for AWS as well. So you type AWS, see AWS here. And you know when I mentioned there's modules, so these are some modules that's created by the community. So you click on Terraform module. This could be Hachiko, and it could be the Terraform community module as well. And you just give information of all those resources that you can create, like containers and how you do it. There's a great source of information here. So if you want more information on how you want to about Terraform Cloud, the one I mentioned before is here. So you click on here, you can just use it's the next it's their own system that let you to like store your states file, create it. It's in the web, it's that you like see your states, create workspace as well. So that's quite interesting to use as well. So I would recommend looking into that. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. Okay, version network. Okay, I will delete this instead of. Yeah, it's going. Sometimes it's like that, but I would say don't really delete it by hand and then reply because it keeps saying it's because if previously I tried to run up Terraform apply, it wasn't there, and then it, it it's such it's already deployed some of the resources, so I just remove the resources from the resource group, and then I'll run Terraform apply destroy again in order to destroy everything from the TF state file. So let it destroy everything. So in the real world, I would suggest not to run it, not to destroy anything, remove everything manually in GUI. So everything should be on Terraform, like destroy command and stuff. This is just saying that there's another nick reserved for the VM. It's because it's already once created already here. So I just did destroy here. So great. Sometimes we could run a Terraform destroy just to make sure it's completely destroy everything from the state file as well. So I just had to authenticate to type my password in. So, and then this would say you want to destroy all resources. It's just a confirmation as well. And I type yes. So it's saying see to destroy the hair. And for some reason, this wasn't destroyed correctly. Destroy this. It's because I destroyed I think it's already removed already. Let me just refresh my Azure portal. Yeah, so it's got removed. Sorry, it just to refresh that need refreshing. So we could try to do a Terraform apply again. So we can run a plan. So always run a plan. So type the password again. So password like one of your choice. So sometimes when you, so it can tell, so this is like 9 resources, and then 0 to destroy, 0 change. And then, you know, the pip would be the public IP address that would display. So it would give you once it apply. So run Terraform apply again. Terraform apply. So authenticate the password as well. Oh, yeah, sorry, I mean authenticate to your virtual machine. Sorry, apologies. And give you confirmation that you want to deploy the resources. You can see it's nine to deploy after it's 9 to plan as well, or when you do Terraform plan. So that's just confirming how many, what you want, and all the resources exactly the same when you want to deploy. Just make sure that it's stay inconsistent. So we say yes. So this should create all the resources now. So we can go to Azure portal, we can refresh the page. And you should see another VMs coming up. So resource group, Terraform lab. So that's the resource group it should be in there. See, these are several resources that under that sit within the Terraform lab resource group. So it couldn't create this before previously. My OS this one. So that's the version this that's associated with the VM that's created called DC2. So it's still creating the VM. So you can deploy Terraform through different ways. So you can deploy it through the CI/CD tool, for example, Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions or Jenkins, your favorite CI/CD tool. But this is quite a manual way of doing it. You can automate that using DevOps as well. So it's trying to create everything back. So you go to Azure portal, refresh it. You can see it will come up as well. It just takes a while. So it's quite best practice to put all the resources that you create on the resource group. So anything regarding virtual machine, I want to create like VNet, like Key Vault. I put it under the same virtual resource group. Have you guys got any question?
No, maybe I can ask a question for you. So
Yeah,
what if
sure.
I you
Okay,
mentioned
so you can
putting
see
this
such
from
a
the yeah.
second, sir. Sorry, say again.
So you mentioned about implementing this Terraform files to the CI like Azure DevOps or Jenkins or GitHub
Yeah.
Actions. So what if I run this Terraform files multiple times? Will I get errors like it's already created, or it's just try to create and see if it exists?
Okay,
Just skip it.
so if you have multiple users running the same, like applying changes to state file that store your configuration, your files will get corrupted, and then this is like it would be locked. For example, this would be example of a lock file, And then
Okay.
once it's locked, your Terraform state file will be locked. You can't, no other users can perform any like plan or apply that right to the state file. And then someone have to neither go to like unlock it. So you can either go to your state file and like an example would be when I go to my state file, they and you go to containers. Normally, when it's get locked, when multiple people use it, you can click on break leases. Break leases just unlock it, the state file
Okay.
as well. When multiple operations are done simultaneously, it will just lock it, just for damage in state file. You can
Okay.
see that this time, when you run second time, it successfully created deployed resources. So 9 that's deployed, still destroy, and it output the public IP address of the virtual machine. So in order to confirm that, you go to resource group, Terraform lab, and you can see, give it a refresh. Sometimes you can't see because it's resource. So I think some of them are in separate resources already created in the subnet, because when you said 9 resources, there's a subnet that's calculated resources, separate resource,
Yeah.
individual resource. That's what I said, 9 resources already created.
So we can check with the deployments. Uh,
Yeah, so you
yeah.
can just either confirm it's how many resources here, or you can just check 9 added. So 9 added, you can tell whether sometimes when it's added like this, there's other resources within resources. For example, like the VNet, there's subnets and stuff, and then there is.
I'm in the
So that's
deployments page under the settings.
so on the deployment. It wouldn't tell. This is for only for ARM templates, so you can't check it here.
Ah, okay.
It's only for template web first match. You can only check it for here on here. So it's 6. So and then there's 9. So I would suggest some of them will be the hidden. For example, there's one public counter secrets. So secrets are
Okay.
different resources, and then there's a separate one on. I think it will be on. You can need a. So sometimes the NIC will cancel the separate resources as well. The NIC here. So this IP address is different resources as well, and the subnet from here is counted as different resources. So I would suggest you majority type it will be the same 9 and 9 here, but if there's none, you just confirm where you were the resources that deployed been successful. So this is how you deploy, how you get started. You can get started with Terraform, and you can see this is the log file that when you multiple people lock an operation, like register state. So this is quite easy to write Terraform. It's just more time practicing, more times you can use it, and then you can create modules that I mentioned before in my presentation and reuse it. I can give you an example of modules as well if you want. So how a module will look like would be, so if we were to give you an example of a module, I think I have it previously. So I would, if you don't know how to create a module, go on the Terraform registry, you go on the website, you can browse to module here, and you could actually look into how people created their own modules and get an idea. So you create the source code here, and you go to GitHub, and then you can see the modules folder, and you get an idea how it will structure. the modules. There's more of the basics, so you can tell it's calling the module. So it's module. This is calling the folder. The this is calling the other submodules here. So it's one of the way that you can use it as well. So the next infrastructure code that we're going to talk about now is Bicep. So Bicep is another popular tool that you can use to deploy Azure resources to Azure itself, but you can't use it with AWS if you want decide to use it, Bicep. So Bicep is a declarative language as well. So Bicep, as I mentioned before, it sits on top of ARM template. It's not really JSON, so it's quite neater. So in this example of Bicep, so I can show you how you can create it. So first get started with Bicep. Here, extension, you type Bicep here, and you just install the normal Bicep extension from Microsoft. So I've got it pre-installed. I've already installed it already on my Visual Studio Code. So once you got this installed, you can find out that if you're using Bicep on your right-hand side, there's top bottom, you see my cursor, it said set language mode, and it should be Bicep here as well. So that's how you know to use Bicep. And if you were to deploy any resources, for example, let's start again. If you want to deploy any resource in Bicep, you always type resources. And then on the resources, you need to give it a values or stuff. Define the name of the resource. So we can call it, like, for example, test. And then you can see it will be on a Microsoft. And then it's just so you can, when you deploy, give your values, and it was sometimes you get, if you didn't want to know how you deploy it, you just go back to type it. You normally will get the actual indication. So telesense. So telesense is how it tell you what to do. So in my example now, I've got GitHub Copilot, so it's giving me an example straight away what to do it. So you can put test, and then you can put, there you go. I need a drop down. So so I wanted to find the drop down. So go back to resources, and then give it test. Yeah, there you go. So here is all the resource here on the drop down here that you can create. So it's quite a lot. So we can create something simple. So we can type, so we can create okay, so for example, in this example, I've created a storage account. So to do that, you go back to the same way, sorry, and then give it a name, and then storage account. So it's under Microsoft .storage account, and then we just keep it simple, and then we can create a storage account. So we can create storage account here. This is normally the API version. So the API is you normally do the latest one. The latest one is always at the top, and then it's always, you can either, if you can either all the store open with curly braces, and all storage account have a name, and the name could be test, and all storage account have a location as well. You can see my telecenter is putting up for me, and it's on storage V2. It have a SKU as well, name SKU. That's, and the type of storage account is storage LRS. Okay, so after storage account, you can give it a properties. So on the properties, you can have different stuff. So you can have it under, you can either allow it, disallow it. So you can have separate properties as well. Or normal, how, when on Terraform, we define variables, you can do that exactly the same with bicep. But in this way, we use parameters. So we go back to Terraform here, and if it was, because I already created one earlier. So if we were to define this, put this as parameter, so we would need to first define parm, is PARAM, and then type name string. So, and then you can either give it a name, or like I gave it a string. So this could be test, and then we can just define a name here. But I think most time it will be under, this will just be an index, so a name that you want to give the parameter. So it could be like demo name, and then that's the string that you want to call it. Then they call the name, and you just call it here. It's the same as variable, but in Bicep it's parameter. Yeah. So in, as well as you using this, you can also declare Bicep as a module as well. When I showed you earlier that you can do that with Terraform, you can do the same with Bicep. So you can create, this will be your root module, the main.bicep, and you just define, you just type modules and give it a name. So for example, I normally would give it the same name as I create the storage and back to the file storage, and then this will be the location. So let's just delete this, and then give it a name here, and then this would be the path of the module. So since normally just click on, you can click on the dot or backslash, depends on what keyboard you have. But normally I click on /, and it's on the modules folder, and I want it linked to the storage bicep here. And then I think we meant to close the module here, and it normally would just give you link it with the parameter here, and it link it with the name. So then the parameter, you can also reference all the parameter in that here, or some of them, but the extension would help you with the parameter as well. So it's playing with the syntax issues. So here, so not in this looking. Oh, you see, missing an equal. See, no, it normally helps me when you just look at the guide. Any question on Bicep? So it's quite basic of Bicep as well.
Yeah, it's very similar to Terraform.
Yeah, it's very similar. It doesn't. The only thing it doesn't use is like actual programming language of like how you define module, like environment variable. So like in PowerShell, you define it with if like test and environment or something. And we don't use $sign anymore in this. We just define it as primary equal, or you can do the variables. For example, this is a variable name that's been defined in my demo. So I've defined storage account SKU name here, and I've called it, the SKU name is standard GRS, and also I just call it call the name as well. So aside from calling the parameters, you can define variables as well from it. So Bicep is quite easy as well as Terraform. So it's relatively new, but it's very popular Bicep nowadays. So I will recommend you, depending on where you work and what your preference is, just it depends on your environment. So if you work for like a Microsoft company that always do Microsoft clients, I would suggest Bicep. But if you work in a company like do use different multi-cloud services, like where I'm at with Kainos, we use AWS, Terraform, and a little bit of GCP. So we tend to best suited with Terraform itself. It just depends on your preference, really. But I would say learn both first and get an idea of which one you like, and then you can go from there. So in to Bicep, there's a lot of example how you can get started with Bicep. So to get started with Bicep, you can either go to MS Learn, and then there's some modules that you can get started with Bicep. So you can do the fundamental of Bicep here. So let me just give you so the fundamental from MS Microsoft Learn, and it give you some like challenges that you can Bicep as well, some labs. So I would suggest need to do this to get basic understanding and just keep practicing Bicep or Terraform, your preferred language. Any question on Bicep, guys?
No, maybe we can share the Erkan's awesome bicep repository on GitHub.
Yeah. So
It's
I have
nice examples.
I have another slides on. So my last slide is some of the examples here. So this is like MS Learn from Hachikoop and how to install and configure Terraform and Microsoft. So just some articles how you can get started with Bicep, Terraform as well, and the CLI. So we can put this next to the video link or anything for you guys
Yeah,
to
sure,
have
sure.
click on. So that's it. So any question? So you feel free to, if you got any question, feel free to follow me on social media. So scan this QR code and you can follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and just ask me any question and I'll try to get back to you with an answer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicholas. This is a great presentation. And sorry, but I don't believe this is your first. I think you are very professional doing live sessions and live demo. And hopefully, I'd like to have you in another session, maybe another topic.
Sure.
Maybe we can
Yeah.
do.
So we can talk
Yeah,
about like Azure DevOps or so,
yeah,
anything.
sure. And I haven't got any experience with Terraform before, but right now I can say I can do something with Terraform. And thank you
Yeah.
very much for this.
Yeah. So aside from that, there's a lot of like you can. I would say the Hachikoop one, the registry is quite good reference. So because you can find pretty much anything example of it, so it's quite easy to learn. Otherwise, so you can see the multi-cloud, different resources, all
Yeah,
these cloud. So it's quite amazing tool to use. Majority of the companies would use Terraform if they're not solely Azure based Microsoft company. So then that's a good source of information
okay.
because you can go to, because they normally the modules you can go to the link, check the GitHub repo, and then you can see how someone structured the module, structured their value, the resources, and you can either just quite create it, recreate it, but not copy and paste. I avoid copy and paste. It's bad practice.
Yeah. Okay. Any final words before we finish?
No, so I hope you learned something about infrastructure code and hope that you try some of these tools and get started with it. So I hope that you like learn something from this session. And if any question, like what I said earlier, just give me a question, give me like a shout on social media, and I'll try to answer it or try to help you if you got any Terraform question, because I'm quite good with Terraform as well. So thank you for having me. All right.
You are welcome, and thank you for this session again. And
Thank you.
hopefully, I'd like to see you
I'll see you again
much more on the
soon.
community on this show or and others.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.